You may not be easily fooled, but a recent study showed that a third of people couldn't tell at a glance which of these are masks. Sure, they go by really fast, but when many people were given unlimited time, they still couldn't tell.
When they're given as long as they like, they're having a really hard time and giving us the wrong answer to this seemingly simple question on about 1 in 5 trials.
We've all seen masks like these in movies like Mission Impossible, but they have made it out of Hollywood and are being used to fool people in real life and even commit crimes, like this masked bank robber in California.
The police were looking for someone of a particular description, and it later transpired that they'd been looking for someone who was totally different.
To learn more, I spoke to Rob Jenkins. He's a psychologist who has published studies looking at facial perception using hyper-realistic masks.
Can you talk about these experiments you've been running in recent years, looking at how these masks are indeed fooling people?
And these hyper-realistic masks break the connection that we've all become used to between facial appearance and identity. And we were interested in whether people are getting away with that kind of concealment because people just aren't paying attention. They don't see any reason to be looking at a particular person's face, or maybe they're just not expecting to see something like a highly realistic mask, and so it doesn't occur to them that that might be what they're seeing. Or if the masks really are so realistic that they just pass for regular humans. And so we wanted to test that more formally. We had this computer-based task where we're showing people pairs of images on screen, and they just have to say which one is the mask. Now, we've done that in a couple of ways. One is just kind of at a glance, so it's to model the sort of situation where, someone walks past, we're talking like half a second or something, and they just catch your eye. And we did that because we thought this task might be too easy, and we'd just see everyone's performing perfectly, right? That wasn't the case at all. So people were terrible at making these discriminations when it was a brief presentation. So we decided to make it easier on them and just say, okay, you can take as long as you like. And when they're given as long as they like, that improves performance a little bit. But they're having a really hard time and giving us the wrong answer to this seemingly simple question on about 1 in 5 trials.
That's actually one of the reasons I find this so interesting, is that we're evolutionarily programmed to pick up on facial cues. It's so much of our social interaction, yet you have these masks that aren't necessarily 100% realistic still fooling a good amount of people.
If we want to improve detection of these masks when they're being misused for criminal activities, part of the solution might be to look for other cues that conflict with the signal you're getting from the face. There could be mismatches in apparent age. So if the way the person is moving looks very youthful, but the face looks very old and wrinkled and haggard, that's a useful mismatching cue. So there are a number of things that you could look for that are not directly to do with facial appearance, but exploit the facial appearance in conjunction with other messages that you're getting. And that sort of conflict could be a part of the detection story, I think.
Faces are the most important subject matter in art. It's a never-ending source of material. When you put on one of my masks, you become somebody different. You start to embody that character and have a lot of fun with it. My name's Landon Meyer, and I make disturbingly realistic masks. I never thought I was going to make a living doing masks. I was a picture framer, loan officer, pizza delivery driver, and then I got laid off. I've always been interested in doing something that's like really surreal and nightmarish. So it was more or less an experiment that took off. I am the only person out there that's doing hyper-realistic likeness masks. I'm kind of this weird mad scientist down in the basement. I start off getting lots of reference material. The hardest part is doing the sculpture. That can take anywhere from 4 days to a year. But once the sculpt is done and I have a mold, it's about a 1-week process to make a mask. They are ungodly expensive. They range $500 and up, and sometimes even high as $7,500. Over the years, I've made approximately 25 different designs, and I've produced with my own hands over 1,000 masks. What I make, I like to consider wearable art. These are super realistic sculptures you can put over your head and wear. People just seem to have this astonished reaction to the masks. That's what I love about them.
In real life, mask technology has advanced so much that those made-up storylines aren't so impossible to imagine anymore. Joining us now with more is Rob Jenkins. He's a psychologist and researcher at the University of York in England. Okay, I know I'm supposed to be talking to Rob, but you look like Walter White.
Yeah, I'm in here somewhere, but, you know, I'm getting too old for this kind of thing.
This is... Look at this. Come on.
Here we go.
I mean, that's just... I'm just floored by how realistic it looked. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, we've kept finding that in live situations, people just accept these masks as real faces. So we've set up a computer-based test to find out just how realistic they are. And the test is very simple. We just show people pairs of photographs. One is always a real face. The other is always a mask. And the task is simply to indicate which one is the mask. Now, if people can tell the difference, they should pick the mask every time. But that's not what we found. In fact, people pick the real face instead of the mask on at least 20% of occasions. So
wow.
This tells us that people are having a really tough time telling the best of these masks from real faces.
Well, these incredibly lifelike masks, and I've got one right here. They're made by in Canada by a Quebec-based company, Real Flesh Masks, and they're designed, as you said, to imitate real human faces. And they really do. They look remarkably real. So what we've got a picture of an actual human face, and here is one of a realistic mask. So, as you said, you did this research, and you've asked participants to choose between the masks and the wearing of the faces. I guess, were you surprised by what you discovered?
We were surprised because some people are skeptical and tend to be overconfident, saying, oh, well, I would be able to tell the difference. We don't have to argue about that. We can just run the experiment. And so that's what we've done.
Here, he's adding some color to the nipple of this fake bodysuit. But as he moves the airbrush up, he's adding a much more subtle change. You can see the difference between the bottom of the suit and the top part that he hasn't gotten to yet. What this spray paint does is give the suit texture, mimicking the undertones human skin naturally has, and giving the appearance of tiny details like pores. From a life cast picking up on an actor's defining features, to sculpting subtle veins, to mastering a jiggly stomach, a lot of effort goes into making the bodysuits actors wear look realistic. Warning, some spoilers ahead for Bill and Ted Face the Music. Bodysuits let actors go through physical transformations that they couldn't easily make on their own, from gaining weight to gaining muscle to being pregnant. There are times when bodysuits don't need to be as detailed because they're covered in clothing, like this suit Kevin Yeager designed for Dana Carvey in an ultimately cut sequence from The Master of Disguise. But because Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter appear shirtless in Bill and Ted Face the Music, both the muscle suits and fat bodysuit created for scenes where they meet future versions of themselves had to be incredibly detailed.